in today's video. So, some of you may not know this, but I love anime. I've been watching anime for a very, very long time. Maybe before, definitely long before it was considered to be cool, because I watched anime like Dragon Ball when it was kind of hot on Cartoon Network. I watched Rurouni Kenshin. I watched a whole bunch of things that at the time I didn't know were anime. I remember seeing Naruto for the first time when I was like 8 or 9. I remember it very well because it was a time where we were testing the dial-up internet at home. If I'm talking about dial-up internet, you must have a fair idea of how old I am. But yeah, so I've been watching anime for a very long time. I will say that it was sometime in 2006. That's when I recognized anime as anime. And that's when I was watching the likes of Naruto and then my favorite anime, Bleach, at the time and stuff like that. But over the years, I've been watching anime all the time. It's one of the main forms of media I consume. And the most interesting thing is that I'm also a bit of a movie buff. I love movies. But I've noticed that there's such a very poor intersection of anime and movies vis-a-vis talking about live action anime, where live action anime is real humans playing anime characters in a movie. Over the past few years, some anime movies have dropped and they haven't been particularly hot. For instance, Netflix's Full Metal Alchemist. Honestly, was not great for me. Netflix's Bleach was surprisingly okay. Although it could have been done way better. Attack on Titan, the very famous Attack on Titan movie, I watched both. So I'm generally a person who gives every anime live action movie a chance. So I feel like I'm all versed enough to talk about this, which is a few of the reasons why anime live action doesn't really work well. Now, why am I talking about this right now? Well, I'm talking about this because the anime or manga I consider the best literary piece in the world, the best piece of literature ever written so far, to me personally, is about to get a live action show from Netflix. And that is One Piece. Now, if you know anything about the anime community, you definitely know One Piece. But if you do not know anything about One Piece is this amazing story written by Goda. That's his nickname, but his real name is Eiichiro Oda, a mangaka, and he's had this story ongoing for well over 26 years, I believe. Let me explain to those who know nothing about manga and anime how it typically works. So, depending on the serialization you work for, the company that will be publishing this manga, you may either, and based on your work ethics, you may either drop weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly. Everybody has their own style, and depending on your serialization and the demands of your editor, the company that's publishing, and your capabilities, you have different speeds. Now, Oda is of the ilk of where they drop one chapter every week. So this man draws and puts together the whole piece of the story for a chapter every week. He's been doing this since sometime in 1997, consistently, until this date. The story hasn't ended. There are well over 1,000 chapters in the One Piece manga. So if you're interested in getting into it, you know you have a lot to read, and you can catch up in like 3 months if you take your time. So he's been doing this consistently. Now, the most amazing thing about Eiichiro Oda that many people talk about is his world building, his ability to construct such a wonderful world. And what I personally love about Eiichiro Oda, this is not supposed to be a One Piece video, so I think I'll just say, I'll make a full One Piece, a whole love poem to One Piece video later. But basically, I love One Piece. And it's getting a live action anime. Live action adaptation. Now, the thing for me is that Netflix, here are my qualms with it. I think Netflix is the wrong company to be doing this, simply because I feel like Netflix does not have an extreme sense of echoes loyalty, where loyalty in this sense means that if you all remember Jupiter's Legacy, when I think it's Frank Miller, I've forgotten, one of the Millers, the whole universe is his idea, all that stuff, and they were so excited. We're like, we are going to put so much investment into this. Now they dropped first season of Jupiter's Legacy, and it kind of flopped. I enjoyed it because it talks about certain aspects of superheroing that I really enjoy. I prefer the darker side, and Netflix just dropped in like a hot potato. After spending over 200 million, if I'm not mistaken, into that, they kind of just dropped it. So for me, it's like, with how One Piece is set up, bare minimum, you need to assure me, if I was on that, you need to assure me that I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they are giving him this assurance, but you need to assure me of a minimum of 4 seasons of the show. Because One Piece has a lot of flashbacks that happen in the future, and there's a lot that is going on. I'll probably do a whole video about why I think the One Piece thing, Netflix shouldn't be doing it, and which company I think should actually do it, because I don't want this video to be too long. So let me just dive into the reasons why I think anime live action doesn't work. First is budget. Now, as with all things, budget is a very big factor. How much money you get access to is going to affect what you're able to do. And also, budget is not as much of a constraint if you have a lot of time. But if you do not have a lot of time, budget makes that less of a problem. Because if you're doing set pieces or you're shooting certain scenes and you don't have a big budget, but you have a lot of time, you could do more practical effects and you could set it up to go through. Practical effects are kind of expensive, but you can have your actors and stuntmen actually go through the scenes, as opposed to if you have to churn out the movie in such a short period of time, you just go to visual effects and pay them a chunk of money to do all these things. So typically budget is a big factor. However, there are few live action movies, one in particular, that's Ghost in the Shell, and if you know anything about the Ghost in the Shell, it was a live action anime where Scarlett Johansson was played the lead. That's Major Kusanagi, and honestly, that particular live action didn't work for so many reasons, and I might touch on some of them. But the first thing is budgets. Budget is a very big deal. How much money are you going to be able to put into this and invest a lot of money into it? Next is what I call medium drawback. So when I say medium, here's the thing. All anime and manga readers and anime watchers, you know this for a fact. Manga is basically Japanese comics. So the same way you have a Batman and a Superman comic book and stuff like that, that's how manga works. Drop it weekly. Now, if you notice, when you read the manga and they take the manga material and they transform it into an animation or anime, or when you take a comic book and they transform it into an animation, there are a couple of things that are missing. There's very rarely a pure translation of the media or across the media, where word for word, shot for shot, scene for scene, everything is plucked from the original source, which is in this case manga or comics, and into anime or animation. There always have to be concessions made. There always have to be certain things that are shifted around, and that is how it kind of works. Now imagine it going to another stage where it moved from manga or moved from comics into anime/animation, and now it's going into a film. That's another medium it has to go through with its own set of constraints, with its own issues that it has to modify itself and evolve to be able to meet that. So sometimes along that journey, a lot is lost. And with something like anime, which is really fan driven, because anime's popularity, yes, is increasing, but it's still, there are very few iconic anime that everybody, include every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every single person knows about. You understand? It does. So the media sometimes affects it, because each media form has its own drawbacks, its own concessions that it needs to make this thing happen, and that could taint the originality of the entire product. Because I mean, if you're looking at an anime like Bleach, a live action Bleach, they are carrying big swords, they are crazy, there's so much crazy stuff going on, the way they look, the fashion and everything. And if, like I mentioned before, the budget is not big enough to deal with at least the fashion bit, there will be a constraint. But the media, like the people, cannot always look like the way they are portrayed in the manga and then the anime adaptation. So that's my second drawback. Third is the fandom. Typically, we the fans, we demand a lot. We have a lot of demands when it comes to what we consume, how we appreciate it outcome, basically. Because many a times, those in the anime community, you know, there's many a times the manga is there, the manga readers are like, yeah, this is the manga, then they do the anime, and then the manga readers watch the anime and they're like, oh, no, it was better in the manga. And then the anime watchers are like, what are you talking about? It was okay, or it was great, or it was not great. And then there's this whole back and forth. So imagine that you've added fill. So now the anime watchers are probably going to be like, what is this? This is probably not good. And then those who have never seen the anime but are watching a movie for whatever reason are like, why? This was bad, or this was good. And then anime lovers are like, no, but it was good in the anime, it was bad in the anime. Like the fandom at this point in anime's history dictates a lot of what is going to happen. So I feel like to actually address this thing, many of us fans have to give things a lot more chances. We need to support a lot of stuff. I agree, we shouldn't support mediocrity, but it is what it is. And finally, at least for today, it's a very tough conversation, which is a conversation of cultural appropriation, or at least the definition of cultural appropriation and how said culture feels about that thing. So this is a very big thing to tackle. But many a times, even in the cosplaying community, there are people who are like, the anime is made by the Japanese, so they are the only people who should be allowed to be able to properly interpret it and so many things. And I feel like that is wrong. Hold on. I feel like that's wrong. Dog out for me. Hear me out. Full Metal Alchemist. Now, Netflix did what many other companies would do, where they typically give it to Japanese people or the Japanese to do. But here's a situation where in the Full Metal Alchemist story, most of the characters kind of already have a nationality, where the Elric brothers were kind of Caucasian, blonde hair, gold-eyed. Then Roy Mustang had his look. It's been a long time, but the dude who became Greed, I think. No, was it Greed or no? It was Olaf. One of them. I don't want to say, but he kind of had his own look. I'll put his picture in somewhere. He had his own look, so it's like there were already clearly demarcated races that are reflections of the races we have in the real world. So for me, as a manga reader, as an anime watcher, I feel like, why don't we just get the real representation of these races to just play the role? I get it that Japanese is a Japanese man who made it, but let's understand that anime came out of Japan's appreciation of comics and animation from America. So is anime cultural appropriation if it started off as an ode or a metamorphosis of comics? No, it's not. It's just an appreciation. So if a character sets Attack on Titan, the character is clearly said to be one of the last of the Asian race. But in the live action, everybody was Asian. We know Eren is not Asian. He's probably European. And we know all these cleanly cut races. So why are we not representing it when it comes to the live action? And that's because there's a lot of very toxic conversation about cultural appropriation and the definitions of it. And even if the people who created this content care, not care or are offended by this, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I think at the end of the day, if there comes a time where a live action anime is made and the characters are representative of the races that are in said story, and because let's say for instance like One Piece, Oda has kind of dropped what each character's race would be in his SBSs, so if I'm making a live action, it would be wild crazy to just make everybody Japanese, I think. And I feel like Oda agrees with that, because so that's why in the One Piece live adaptation, that's not what's happening. He's trying to have us close to the races is stated in the story. So all in all, anime live action needs a lot of work. I mean, to me, the best anime live action movie is the Rurouni Kenshin movies. Absolutely stellar. It's on Netflix. At least Netflix gone right now. You can watch it. It is absolutely beautiful. It is, to me, is the best, and it works because the characters were of a certain race, and that's the race that's representing them. The action is amazing. It is great. If you want to watch any live action anime movie, that's the one I would recommend. But all in all, I will do another. I'll probably add more to this, maybe a kind of an anime series. I do have an idea for a video. Maybe I should just record that next for talk about certain manga or anime that I think would be good as live action. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Well, as always, jump in the comment section. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about. Let me know what you think, and we will crush. Peace.